What happens when the good guys end up taking the heat and the bad guys are allowed to walk? What happens when the watchdogs are looking out for the wrong side? This topsy-turvy world of Alice in Wonderland can only exist in one place, Wall Street. Here, via Skype, to tell us yet another grievous story from Wall Street is one of the best reporters on the games played down there, former investment banker and a columnist for Bloomberg View, where his latest column is When Wall Street Watchdogs Hunt Whistleblowers, Bill Cohen. Bill, thanks for joining us.
Well, Elliot, thank you for having me, and I appreciate you accommodating me in this technological medium. But, you know, it is once again incredible, and I appreciate the kind words. But, you know, this honestly once again has proven to me how little real regulation is going on of the SEC of Wall Street. You know, this is a story of a guy named Peter Sivere, who is, you know, was basically a mid-level compliance officer at J.P. Morgan Chase. And you will remember, Elliot, because you prosecuted this, the late trading mutual fund scandal in the early part of the last decade. And there was a hedge fund involved, and then Bank of America was involved. And then the SEC, after you filed your complaint, the SEC demanded of J.P. Morgan Chase documents and emails that might be worthy of this, that might be helpful in terms of their investigation into this matter. And this guy, Peter Sivere, went about with his team of compliance officers to try to put together a dossier of documents. And he kept finding more and more documents that were incriminating about J.P. Morgan Chase. Unfortunately, his bosses discovered that he was finding these documents, and one thing led to another, and eventually they fired this fellow, Peter Sivere. He then decided that, before he actually got fired, but by the time they were blocking him from sending these relevant documents to the SEC, he decided he was going to become a whistleblower at the SEC. And of course, as you know, there's a mechanism in place for people like Peter Sivere to become contacted a lawyer at the SEC in a confidential conversation. This is where it really gets incredible. He was then fired. He filed a complaint with OSHA claiming that he had been retaliated against for providing the SEC with these documents. OSHA found that, in fact, he was retaliated against. He was ordered to be reinstated by OSHA. He decided he didn't want to do that. He and J.P. Morgan Chase settled for $350,000. Pretty much that would be the end of the story, except that Peter Sivere decided to file a Freedom of Information Act request with OSHA to find out what had really happened to him. And that's when he discovered that the lawyer that he had contacted confidentially at the SEC had ratted him out to J.P. Morgan Chase's lawyers as part of the lawsuit that he had with J.P. Morgan Chase. Yep. And he discovered that he broke the confidence that he had with this fellow and told J.P. Morgan Chase about the request that he had made to get paid via being a whistleblower. And basically, the whole purpose of the whistleblower confidentiality was blown by this lawyer turning in this poor guy, Peter Sivere.
And so, as it turns out, Sivere gets fired, recovers a little bit of money. J.P. Morgan Chase basically walks away without a whole lot being done to them. And the SEC, once again, the bad guys, the malefactors, the worst actors, their lawyer violates the most fundamental confidence that he's been given, that of a whistleblower, an informant, and rats him out. Again, the SEC failing, the big Wall Street bank getting away reasonably scot-free, and the one good guy who wants to do something getting the raw end of the stick. That's basically what happened here.
That's exactly what happened. With the extra little twist, Elliot, that's unbelievable, is that the lawyer for the SEC, who of course nothing happened to, he was allowed to, retire, resign. He decided he wanted to run for Congress,
right,
from a congressional district on eastern Long Island. Now, eventually, that was this year, by the way. Eventually, in May of this year, he decided to not pursue the race. So maybe he would have lost. Maybe the publicity around what happened to Peter Sivere was the thing that did him in. But once again, you see just how close in cahoots Wall Street is with the regulator who's supposed to be regulating it. It's just incredible how somebody who tries to do the right thing, like Peter Sivere, is the one who loses his job and gets sort of blackballed by Wall Street for trying to do the right thing and help an SEC investigation.
Look, you alluded at the beginning of this. This is what I call the mutual fund trading scandals. We broke this open going on about 8-9 years ago when I was AG. Huge, cost consumers tens of billions of dollars. The SEC, I will tell you, was absolutely horrendous in this. Did not want to agree to the most important part of the remedy, which was driving mutual fund fees down because they were too weak-kneed, lily-livered, amoeba-like, spineless, whatever metaphor that you can use on TV to explain how bad the SEC has always been. And now we find out also, fascinating thing in your article, Jamie Dimon, now the CEO of J.P. Morgan Chase, was personally involved in this in trying to find out what had gone on at Morgan Chase. Do you think he was aware of the magnitude of what was going on?
Well, he was, remember, it was the time that Bank One had merged with J.P. Morgan Chase. He was the president and COO, this was in late 2004 when this was going on, October of 2004. I think he was probably trying to get his hands around what was going on with this investigation. And there were a number of emails involving Jamie Dimon and the co-general counsel of J.P. Morgan, Joan Guggenheimer, to try to find out what was going on with this, because it came out that one of the things that Peter Sivere discovered was that J.P. Morgan Chase was financing the hedge fund to do the late trading that, of course, was costing consumers the billions of dollars that you were just talking about.
And my recollection, and I have to go back, is that they knew when they were financing, when they were lending the money to Canary, which is the hedge fund, they knew exactly how Canary was making its money.
You've got mail.
Because otherwise they wouldn't have lent them the hundreds of millions of dollars. They knew they were financing a scheme that was improper, and that's why there was culpability on the part of the major banks. They knew the system was being rigged, gamed. This is not only the underlying corruption, but, Bill, as you pointed out, the SEC almost in bed with Morgan Chase, helping them push back against the one whistleblower who wanted to do something.
Elliot, when you have an SEC lawyer calling up the lawyer for J.P. Morgan Chase and saying, hey, this guy is a whistleblower, he's trying to, get a bounty from us for providing this information, which is perfectly legal. He's entitled to try to get that bounty. But for him turning to the lawyer for J.P. Morgan Chase and say, hey, by the way, you might, want to know that this guy is trying to get a bounty from us and you should use this in your lawsuit against him. I mean, what is that all about? It's just so shocking you couldn't even make it up if you wanted to.
Bill, we know what it's about. It's called corruption at the highest levels on Wall Street at the SEC. It's a shame it's our government. Former investment banker, columnist for Bloomberg View, and author of Money and Power, How Goldman Sachs Came to Rule the World. Bill Cohen, as always, thanks so much for your time tonight.
Thank you, Elliot.